Dr. Vexhigh's 6 hands moved with practiced precision over the injured Quillen's wounded wing membrane. The small, bird-like creature chirped softly as the Zenthari veterinarian applied healing gel to the torn tissue. Around them, the medical bay of Harmony Station hummed with quiet efficiency. "There you go, little one," Vexhigh whispered, her translator converting the clicks and whistles of her native language into standard galactic. "Keep that wing still for 3 solar cycles, and you'll be flying again." The Quillen's owner, a nervous Batarian merchant, paid quickly and hurried away with his pet. Vexhigh cleaned her instruments, satisfied with another successful treatment. In her 40 years of practice, she had treated thousands of species from across the galaxy. Her reputation as the finest veterinarian in this sector was well earned. The medical bay doors slid open with a soft hiss. Vexhigh looked up, expecting another routine case. Instead, she froze. A human stood in the doorway. The creature was tall, bipedal, with pale pink skin and strange fur only on the top of its head. It wore a blood-stained uniform that marked it as a cargo hauler. Most disturbing of all were its eyes, 2 forward-facing orbs that screamed of a predator's nature. The human held something pressed against its side, and dark red liquid seeped between its fingers. "Please," the human said, its voice rough with pain. "I need help." Vexhigh's 4 eyes widened in alarm. Every instinct told her to run. Humans were classified as Class A apex predators by the Galactic Council. They came from a death world where everything tried to kill everything else. They were violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. "I cannot help you," Vexhigh said, backing away from her examination table. "This facility is for civilized species only." The human took a step forward, and Vexhigh's hearts raced. "Please, I'm bleeding badly. The medical bay for sapients is closed for maintenance. You're the only doctor on this level." "I am not a doctor," Vexhigh corrected, fighting to keep her voice steady. "I am a veterinarian. I treat animals, not things like you." The insult hung in the air between them. The human's face showed pain, but not anger. That almost made it worse. Vexhigh had heard that humans were most dangerous when they appeared calm. "I can pay," the human offered. "I've got credits, rare minerals, whatever you need." "No amount of payment would convince me to treat an apex predator," Vexhigh replied. "Your kind is banned from most civilized worlds for good reason. I've heard the stories. How you conquered your own planet by killing everything else on it. How you wage wars for sport. How you eat other sapient beings." The human's strange eyebrows drew together. "Eat other sapients? We don't do that. And we don't wage wars for sport." "Lies come as easily as breathing to your kind," Vexhigh said. "I know what you are. The galaxy knows what you are." The human swayed slightly, and more blood dripped to the floor. "Look, I don't know what you've heard about humans, but I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm just trying to get home to my daughter. Please." The mention of offspring gave Vexhigh pause. Most apex predators were solitary creatures who abandoned their young. But she hardened her resolve. "Your manipulation tactics won't work on me. Leave my medical bay immediately or I'll call station security." "Security won't help," the human said weakly. "The incident that injured me, it involved some very important people who don't want witnesses." This statement chilled Vexhigh to her core. Was the human threatening her? She reached for her emergency communicator, but the human raised a hand. "I'm not threatening you," it said, as if reading her thoughts. "I'm just saying that going through official channels isn't safe for me right now. I need medical help, and then I'll leave. You'll never see me again." Vexhigh's finger hovered over the communicator. Something in the human's voice gave her pause. It sounded genuine, desperate, yes, but not violent. "Show me the wound," she heard herself saying. The human's eyes widened with surprise and hope. Slowly it lifted the makeshift bandage from its side. Vex-High gasped despite herself. 3 parallel gashes ran from the creature's ribs to its hip. They were deep, precise cuts that spoke of a bladed weapon rather than claws or teeth. "By the void," she whispered. "What did this to you?" "Calaxian blade dancers," the human replied. "I saw something I wasn't supposed to see. They tried to silence me permanently." Vex-High knew of the Calaxians, a reptilian species known for their deadly grace in combat. They were also known for their involvement in less-than-legal activities throughout this sector. If they had attacked this human, then perhaps the creature was a victim rather than a predator. "Calaxians are dangerous," she said slowly. "Why didn't you just give them what they wanted?" "Because what they wanted was for me to stay quiet about them selling poisoned grain to the refugee camps on Tertius Prime." The human's voice carried anger now, but it wasn't directed at her. "Thousands of people are going to die if that grain reaches them. Children, families who have nowhere else to go." Vex-High's worldview wavered. Apex predators didn't care about the welfare of other species. They certainly didn't risk their lives for strangers. Yet here was this human, bleeding and in pain, claiming it had been attacked for trying to protect others. "You're lying," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Check the shipping manifests," the human replied. "Calaxian Freight Solutions. Shipping containers marked as agricultural supplements bound for Tertius Prime. Run a spectral analysis on the contents. You'll find they're laced with Vorthan toxin." Vex-High's blood ran cold. Vorthan toxin was a banned chemical weapon that caused slow, agonizing death. It was particularly deadly to mammalian species, which included most of the refugees on Tertius Prime. "Why should I believe you?" she asked. "Because I'm telling you how to verify it," the human said. "If I was lying, would I give you such specific information that could be easily checked?" The logic was sound, but Vex-High's training and instincts warred with her growing doubt. Everything she had been taught about humans said they were dangerous killers, but this one seemed more concerned with saving others than with its own injury. "Even if what you say is true," she said finally, "I cannot treat you. It goes against every regulation, every safety protocol. Humans are classified as too dangerous." The human nodded slowly, disappointment clear on its strange features. "I understand. You have to follow the rules." It turned toward the door, leaving a trail of blood drops on the pristine floor. Vex-High watched it go, her mind churning. The creature moved with obvious pain but no aggression. It hadn't threatened her, hadn't demanded treatment, hadn't even raised its voice when she refused. "Wait," she called out. The human stopped, but didn't turn around. "The classification protocols," Vex-High said slowly. "They were written by the Calaxians and their allies in the Galactic Council, weren't they?" "Among others, yes," the human replied quietly. "And the Calaxians benefit from humans being seen as dangerous monsters? It makes it easier for them to operate without human interference," the creature agreed. "Hard to be heroes of justice when everyone sees you as the villain." Vex-High's mind raced. The Calaxians had always pushed hardest for anti-human legislation. They claimed it was for public safety, but what if it was really to eliminate competition? What if the stories about human violence and savagery were exaggerated or fabricated entirely? She looked at the human's back, at the blood seeping through its uniform, at the way it held itself with quiet dignity despite being refused help. This didn't match any description she had heard of human behavior. "Come back," she said softly. The human turned slowly, hope and wariness mixing in its expression. "I'll examine the wound," Vex-High continued, "just to assess the damage. That's not technically treatment." Relief flooded the human's face. "Thank you." As the creature approached her examination table, Vex-High noticed more details that contradicted the stories she had heard. Its movements were careful, controlled, showing concern for not frightening her. When it passed close to her equipment, it was careful not to touch anything without permission. Its eyes, while forward-facing like a predator's, showed intelligence and compassion rather than hunger or violence. "What's your name?" she asked, as the human carefully climbed onto the examination table. "Marcus," it replied. "Marcus Chen. I'm a cargo pilot for Independent Freight Solutions." "I am Dr. Vex High," she said, surprising herself by offering her name. She rarely bothered with personal introductions to her patients' owners. Marcus nodded respectfully. "Thank you for considering helping me, Dr. Vex High. I know this isn't easy for you." Vex High began her examination, her 6 hands working with professional efficiency. The wounds were indeed severe. Without treatment, infection would likely set in within hours. But as she worked, she found herself studying Marcus's reactions. Most animals in pain showed aggression or fear. Marcus showed neither. He remained still when she told him to, answered her questions clearly, and even warned her when a particular probe was causing more discomfort. "Your physiology is unusual," she said, as she scanned the wounds with her medical instruments. "Different from the animals you usually treat?" Marcus asked, with what might have been humor. "Different from what I was taught about humans," Vexhai admitted. "Your healing factor is remarkable. These wounds would be fatal to most species, but your body is already beginning to repair itself." "We're pretty resilient," Marcus agreed. "Had to be, growing up on Earth." "Is it true that your homeworld is completely hostile to life?" Marcus considered this. "It can be dangerous, yes, but it's also beautiful. We have vast oceans, forests that stretch for thousands of miles, mountains that touch the clouds. Yes, there are predators and natural disasters, but there's also incredible diversity of life. We share our world with millions of other species." "But you conquered all of them," Vexhai said, repeating what she had been taught. "We domesticated some, learned to live alongside others, and yes, we drove some extinct through our mistakes," Marcus replied honestly. "We're not perfect, but we also created nature preserves, endangered species programs, and laws to protect wildlife. Most humans spend their entire lives without harming another creature." This didn't match the propaganda at all. Vexhai had been told that humans were constantly at war, killing everything they encountered, but Marcus spoke of protection and coexistence. "The grain shipment," she said quietly. "Tell me more about that." Marcus's expression grew serious. "I was doing a routine delivery to the Calaxian facility when I overheard them talking. They were laughing about how the plant food would solve the refugee problem permanently. When I realized what they meant, I tried to record evidence. But they caught me." "Why didn't you just mind your own business?" The question seemed to surprise Marcus. "Because people were going to die. Innocent people who had already lost everything." "But they weren't your people," Vexhai pointed out. "The refugees are mostly Batarians and Quillen, different species entirely." "So?" Marcus asked, genuine confusion in his voice. "What does that matter?" The simplicity of his response stunned Vexhai. In her experience, most species showed preferential concern for their own kind. The idea that someone would risk their life for strangers of a different species was almost incomprehensible. "It matters because they're not human," she said slowly. "And?" Marcus waited for her to continue. And most species prioritize their own survival over that of others." "Most species haven't learned better," Marcus replied. "We did, eventually. It took us a long time and a lot of mistakes, but we figured out that helping others usually helps us too in the long run." Vexhai's hands stilled over her instruments. Everything she had been taught about humans was being challenged by this single conversation. Either Marcus was the most skilled liar in the galaxy, or humans were nothing like what the rest of the galaxy believed. "Dr. Vexhai?" Marcus's voice brought her back to the present. "Are you all right? She realized she had been staring at him for several minutes, lost in thought. Yes, I'm reconsidering some assumptions. About humans? About everything, she admitted. The medical bay's communication system chimed, and a voice filled the room. Attention all station personnel. Be advised that dangerous fugitives may be aboard the station. If you encounter any humans, do not approach them. Contact security immediately. Marcus's face paled. They found me. Who found you? Vex-High asked, though she suspected she already knew. The Calaxians. They must have traced my ship. Marcus started to sit up, wincing as the movement pulled at his wounds. I have to go. If they find me here, they'll hurt you too. Wait, Vex-High said, placing a restraining hand on his arm. She was surprised by how warm human skin was, and how normal it felt. You're in no condition to run. I won't let them hurt you because you helped me, Marcus insisted. Again, his concern for her welfare contradicted everything she had been taught about humans. Apex predators were supposed to be selfish and brutal, concerned only with their own survival. Yet Marcus was willing to leave safety to protect someone who had initially refused to help him. The communication system chimed again. Dr. Vex-High, please report to Security Chief Drakmore immediately. Vex-High's stomachs dropped. Drakmore was a Calaxian, and one of the station's most influential figures. If he was looking for her personally, it meant they knew Marcus was here. How did they know? She whispered. Blood trail, Marcus said grimly. I should have been more careful. Dr. Vex-High, the voice continued, you are required to report for questioning regarding your recent patient. This is not optional. Marcus tried again to stand. I have to run. Maybe I can lead them away from you. You'll bleed to death within an hour, Vex-High said firmly. Those wounds need immediate treatment. Then I die trying to do the right thing, Marcus replied simply. Better than letting them use me to hurt you. The sincerity in his voice broke something inside Vex-High's carefully constructed worldview. This wasn't the behavior of a monster or an apex predator. This was the behavior of someone genuinely good, someone willing to die rather than see others suffer. She looked at her medical equipment, then at Marcus, then at the door leading to the corridor where Calaxian security forces were undoubtedly gathering. Everything she had believed about humans was crumbling, but something new was taking its place. A growing conviction that she had been lied to about these creatures for decades. No, she said quietly. No what? Marcus asked. No, I won't let you die, and no, I won't let them use you to spread poison to innocent refugees. Vex-High moved to her emergency cabinet and began pulling out surgical supplies. We're going to patch you up properly, and then we're going to figure out how to expose the Calaxians' plot. Dr. Vex-High, they'll arrest you for helping me. Your career, your life. My life has been built on a lie, she interrupted. I've spent 40 years believing that your species was evil, when the real evil has been right here on this station all along. She began preparing an anesthetic. Besides, someone has to verify your claims about the grain shipment. Marcus stared at her in amazement. You believe me? I believe that someone willing to risk death to save strangers doesn't deserve to die bleeding on my floor, Vex-High replied. Now lie still. This is going to hurt, but not for long. As she began the procedure to properly clean and seal Marcus's wounds, Vex-High found herself wondering how many other things she had been wrong about. How many other species had been misrepresented by those in power? How many injustices had she ignored because she trusted the official version of events? The answers would have to wait. Right now, she had a patient to save and a conspiracy to expose. For the first time in her career, Dr. Vex-High was treating someone not because regulations required it, but because her conscience demanded it. And despite the danger, it felt like the most important work she had ever done. The anesthetic took effect quickly, and Marcus's face relaxed as the pain faded. HFY worked with desperate efficiency, cleaning the wounds and applying synthetic tissue patches that would bond with human cellular structure. Her hands moved automatically while her mind raced through the implications of what she was doing. Helping a human was bad enough. Helping a human that Security Chief Drakmore personally wanted to question was career suicide. But as she worked, watching Marcus's vital signs stabilize, she found she didn't care about her career anymore. Dr. HFY, the communication system crackled again. You have 5 minutes to report to security. Failure to comply will result in disciplinary action. 5 minutes, Marcus mumbled through the anesthetic haze. Not much time. Enough time to finish this properly, HFY replied, applying the final tissue patch. Your body should fully integrate these repairs within 12 hours. Try not to make any sudden movements until then. Marcus's strange human eyes focused on her with difficulty. Thank you. I know this could destroy your life. My life was already destroyed, HFY said quietly. I just didn't know it yet. 40 years of believing lies, of turning away species who might have needed help because they didn't fit the approved categories. How many have suffered because of my ignorance? You couldn't have known, Marcus said weakly. I could have questioned. I could have looked for myself instead of accepting what others told me. HFY began packing her medical supplies into a portable case. We need to move. Can you walk? I think so. Marcus carefully slid off the examination table, testing his balance. The anesthetic made him unsteady, but the bleeding had stopped and the pain was manageable. Where are we going? He asked. To prove you're telling the truth about the grain shipment. HFY activated her personal communicator and began accessing the station's shipping databases. If we can verify your claims, Security Chief Drakmore's position becomes much more complicated. Her fingers flew across the interface, searching for the manifests Marcus had mentioned. Within moments, she found them. 3 large containers scheduled to depart for Tertius Prime within the next 8 hours. The contents were listed as agricultural enhancement supplements. Found it, she breathed. Calaxian Freight Solutions. Exactly as you described. Can you test the contents from here? Marcus asked, leaning against the wall for support. Not directly, but I can run a remote spectral analysis through the station's cargo scanners. HFY's hands trembled slightly as she initiated the scan. If Marcus was lying, she was about to destroy her career for nothing. If he was telling the truth, she was about to expose a conspiracy that went to the highest levels of station management. The results appeared on her screen, and her blood turned to ice. Vorthan toxin, exactly as Marcus had predicted, enough to poison thousands of beings. By all the void spirits, she whispered. It's true. It's all true. The medical bay doors suddenly hissed open, and Security Chief Drakmore stalked in, followed by 4 armed guards. The Calaxian's scales rippled with anger as his eyes fixed on Marcus. Step away from the human, doctor, Drakmore ordered, his blade-like claws extending slightly. You're harboring a dangerous fugitive. I'm treating a patient, HFY replied, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. As is my duty as a medical professional. Your duty is to civilized beings, not apex predators. Drakmore's serpentine head swayed slightly, a sign of agitation in his species. This creature attacked my security team without provocation. That's a lie, Marcus said quietly. I never attacked anyone. Silence, Drakmore snapped. You will come with us for questioning, human, and you, doctor, will face disciplinary review for violating safety protocols. HFY's finger hovered over her communicator, where the spectral analysis results still glowed on the screen. One transmission to the Galactic Health Authority would expose everything. But Drakmore's guards were armed, and she wasn't sure she could complete the transmission before they stopped her. Before we go anywhere, she said carefully. Perhaps you could explain why your freight company is shipping Vorthan toxin to refugee camps. The silence that followed was deafening. Drakmore's eyes narrowed to slits, and his guards shifted nervously. Clearly, they hadn't been told about that particular detail of their operation. I don't know what you're talking about, Drakmore said, but his voice lacked conviction. Container numbers KFS 7749, KFS 7752, and KFS 7751, Vex-High recited from her screen. Currently in Docking Bay 7, scheduled for immediate departure to Tertius Prime. Contents listed as agricultural supplements, but spectral analysis reveals 73% Vorthan toxin concentration. One of the guards, a young Veterinarian, stepped backward in horror. Vorthan toxin was banned throughout civilized space, specifically because of its effects on mammalian species, which included Veterinarians. You're lying, Drakmore hissed, but his certainty was cracking. Then let's go to Docking Bay 7 and open those containers, Vex-High suggested. If I'm wrong, I'll gladly submit to whatever punishment you deem appropriate. The human has obviously fed you false information, Drakmore said quickly. You can't trust anything it tells you. I ran the analysis myself, Vex-High replied. Marcus didn't touch my equipment. The results come from your own cargo scanners. Marcus, despite his weakened state, managed to speak clearly. The refugees on Tertius Prime include over 40,000 Veterinarian children. How many of them will die if that shipment reaches them, Chief Drakmore? The Veterinarian guard looked increasingly distressed. Chief, is this true? Are we really shipping poison to children? Sergeant Veltar, return to your post immediately, Drakmore ordered. You're not qualified to understand the complexities of this situation. The complexity of murdering children? Marcus asked. I'd say that's pretty straightforward. Drakmore's composure finally cracked. His claws extended fully, and he took a threatening step toward Marcus. You humans are all the same, always interfering where you don't belong, always thinking you know better than your betters. Our betters? Marcus laughed weakly. Is that what you call people who poison refugee camps? Those refugees are a burden on galactic resources, Drakmore snarled. They contribute nothing, consume everything. The galaxy would be better off without them. The honest admission of genocidal intent shocked even Drakmore's own guards. Sergeant Veltar, whose species made up a large percentage of the refugee population, raised his weapon and aimed it at his superior. Chief Drakmore, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit genocide, the young guard said, his voice shaking with emotion and determination. You dare point a weapon at me? Drakmore spun toward Veltar, claws gleaming. I am your superior officer. You're a monster, Veltar replied simply. The standoff lasted only seconds. Drakmore lunged at the guard with typical Calaxian speed. Claws aimed at the Veterinarian's throat. But Marcus, despite his injuries and the anesthetic in his system, moved faster. The human intercepted Drakmore's attack, taking the claws meant for Veltar across his shoulder. The Calaxian's momentum carried both of them to the ground, where they rolled in a tangle of limbs and scales. Vex-High watched in amazement as Marcus fought not to kill or dominate, but simply to contain. Even wounded and drugged, he could have easily snapped Drakmore's neck with his superior strength. Instead, he used leverage and positioning to pin the Calaxian without seriously injuring him. Enough, Marcus said firmly, holding Drakmore in a submission hold that the security chief couldn't break. This stops now. The other guards, seeing their chief's true nature exposed, helped Veltar restrain Drakmore properly. Within minutes, the Calaxian was secured in restraints designed for his species. Sergeant Veltar, Vex-High said, I'm transmitting all evidence regarding the poisoned grain to the Galactic Health Authority and the Refugee Protection Agency. You'll want to secure those containers immediately. Yes, Doctor, Veltar replied, clearly still processing everything that had happened. And thank you, Marcus. If you hadn't warned us— You don't need to thank me, Marcus said, wincing as he stood up. You did the right thing when it mattered. That's what counts. Vexhai helped Marcus back onto the examination table to check his reopened wounds. As she worked, she marveled at what she had witnessed. A human, injured and outnumbered, had chosen to protect a member of another species at his own expense, not for gain, not for advantage, but simply because it was right. Why? She asked quietly as she cleaned his new injuries. Why what? Why did you save Veltar? You barely know him. He's not your species, not your responsibility. Marcus looked at her with those strange forward-facing eyes, and she saw something in them that she had never noticed before. Not the cold calculation of a predator, but warmth, compassion, and genuine care. Because he was about to die trying to do the right thing, Marcus said simply. Because he chose to protect children he'd never met, rather than follow orders from someone he trusted. Because someone who makes that choice deserves to live to make more choices like it. Even though helping him put you at greater risk. Especially because helping him put me at greater risk, Marcus replied. The measure of someone's character isn't what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when it costs them something. Vexhai's hands stilled over her instruments. In all her years of treating animals, she had seen loyalty, affection, even what appeared to be altruism. But she had never encountered anything like the principled selflessness that Marcus displayed so naturally. Is this common among humans? She asked. This willingness to sacrifice for strangers? Marcus considered the question seriously. Common enough. We have a saying, good people do good things because they're good people. Most humans, when faced with a choice between helping others and helping themselves, will try to find a way to do both. When forced to choose, more often than not, they choose to help others. That seems inefficient from a survival standpoint. In the short term, maybe. In the long term, it's the only way to build a civilization worth living in. Marcus smiled weakly. We learned that the hard way, over centuries of making the wrong choices. But we did learn. The medical bay doors opened again, and this time it was Captain Tavara, the station's commanding officer. The elderly Vulani looked tired, but determined as she surveyed the scene. Dr. Vexhai, Sergeant Veltar has briefed me on the situation. The grain shipment has been secured, and we've found enough evidence in Chief Drakmore's personal files to prosecute him and his co-conspirators. What about Marcus? Vexhai asked. He was the one who exposed the plot. Mr. Chen will receive a commendation for his service to galactic security, Captain Tavara said formally. The Refugee Protection Agency wants to interview him personally when he's medically cleared for travel. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the praise. I just did what anyone would do. No, Captain Tavara corrected gently. You did what a good person would do. There's a significant difference. She turned to Vexhai. Doctor, I understand you violated several regulations in treating Mr. Chen. Vexhai straightened, prepared to face the consequences of her actions. Yes, Captain. I provided medical treatment to a classified apex predator without authorization. And in doing so, you helped prevent the deaths of thousands of innocent beings. Tavara's expression softened slightly. I'm recommending you for the Galactic Medical Ethics Award. Your willingness to put conscience before regulation exemplifies the best of medical practice. But the classifications will be reviewed, Tavara said firmly. I've already sent a formal request to the Galactic Council questioning the accuracy of human threat assessments. Based on what I've witnessed here today, those classifications may have been influenced by parties with ulterior motives. Marcus tried to sit up straighter. Captain, with respect, you shouldn't judge all humans based on one example. I might be the exception, not the rule. Tavara's expression became almost amused. Mr. Chen, in the past hour, I've watched you risk your life to save refugees you've never met, protect a guard who was initially arresting you, and now try to prevent your entire species from receiving better treatment. If you're an exception among humans, then humans have very high standards indeed. We try, Marcus said simply. As the immediate crisis wound down, Vexhai found herself studying Marcus with new eyes. Everything about him contradicted what she had been taught about apex predators. His concern for others, his willingness to sacrifice, his humility in the face of praise. These weren't the traits of a dangerous monster. They were the traits of something much rarer and more valuable. They were the traits of a genuinely good person. Marcus, she said quietly, when you're fully healed, would you be willing to speak with some of my colleagues? Other medical professionals who treat animals from various species? Of course, Marcus replied. But why? Because I think we need to reevaluate everything we think we know about the species we've dismissed as dangerous, Vexhai said. If we've been this wrong about humans, what other mistakes have we made? Captain Tavara nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need more of, Doctor. Perhaps it's time for the galaxy to judge species by their actions rather than their classifications. Marcus smiled, and for the first time, Vexhai noticed that his predator's teeth weren't just for tearing flesh. They were also capable of expressing genuine warmth and kindness. I'd be honored to help, he said. Though I should warn you, most humans are going to be much more impressive than me. More impressive how? Vexhai asked. Braver, more selfless, more innovative. I'm really pretty ordinary by human standards. Vexhai exchanged a glance with Captain Tavara. If Marcus Chen, who had just risked everything to save thousands of strangers, was considered ordinary among his people, then perhaps the galaxy was about to discover that humans were far more remarkable than anyone had imagined. And perhaps, Vexhai thought as she finished treating Marcus's wounds, it was time for the rest of the galaxy to learn what she had learned today, that the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their capacity for violence. It was their capacity for goodness and their stubborn refusal to accept injustice when they had the power to stop it. That kind of moral courage was truly dangerous to tyrants, to conspirators, and to anyone who profited from the suffering of others. For the first time in her career, Dr. Vexhai was proud to have broken the rules. 3 months after the incident, Dr. Vexhai's medical bay looked very different. The sterile white walls now displayed certificates from multiple galactic organizations, and her appointment schedule was busier than ever. But the most significant change was the small plaque beside her door that read, "All species welcome. Treatment based on need, not classification." Marcus had recovered completely from his injuries, but he hadn't left Harmony Station as planned. Instead, he had accepted a position as liaison between human freight services and station administration. The official reason was to improve cargo handling efficiency. The real reason was that Captain Tavara wanted someone around who could spot corruption before it took root. Dr. Vexhai, her new assistant, a young Quillen named Piptar, chirped from the reception area. "Your next patient is here." Vexhai looked up from the medical journal she was reading, an article about treating silicon-based life forms that would have been considered too dangerous to approach just months ago. "Send them in." The doors opened to admit a sight that would have terrified her before meeting Marcus. A Thrakari warrior, standing nearly 3 meters tall and covered in chitinous armor plating, carried something small and delicate in his massive clawed hands. "Dr. Vexhai," the warrior said, his voice carefully modulated to avoid the intimidating growl his species was known for. "I need help with my companion." Vexhai approached without fear, noting how the Thrakari held his body language to appear as non-threatening as possible. In his hands was a tiny Phylixian butterfly, its gossamer wings damaged and barely able to flutter. "What happened?" she asked, gently taking the delicate creature. "Construction accident at my workplace," the Thrakari explained. "Debris from a falling beam. I tried to shield her, but—" His voice carried genuine distress. Vexhai began her examination, marveling at how gently the supposedly savage warrior handled his pet. 6 months ago, she would have refused to treat any animal belonging to a dangerous species. Now she understood that danger and evil weren't the same thing. "The wing membrane is torn but not destroyed," she diagnosed. "I can repair this, but she'll need to stay still for several days while it heals." Relief flooded the Thrakari's face. "Whatever the cost, Doctor. She's been my companion for 3 years. She's all the family I have." As Vexhai began the delicate repair work, her mind wandered to all the changes that had occurred since Marcus had stumbled, bleeding, into her medical bay. The Calaxian conspiracy had been fully exposed, leading to the arrest of dozens of officials across multiple space stations. The poisoned grain had been destroyed, and the refugees on Tertius Prime had received legitimate aid instead. More importantly, the Galactic Council had launched a comprehensive review of all species classifications. The committee, led by Captain Tavara and including testimony from beings like Marcus, had already reclassified 17 species from dangerous to misunderstood. The Thrakari had been among the first. "Dr. Vexhai," the Thrakari said quietly, "may I ask you something personal?" "Of course," she replied, applying micro-sutures to the butterfly's wing. "Why did you change your practice policies? I know you used to refuse treatment for animals belonging to beings like me." Vexhai paused in her work. It was a fair question, and one she'd been asked many times in recent months. "I learned that I had been judging books by their covers, as humans say. Someone taught me that actions matter more than classifications." "A human taught you this?" "Yes, a cargo pilot named Marcus Chen." The Thrakari's antenna twitched with interest. "I've heard of him. Is it true that he saved an entire refugee camp?" "Among other things, yes." "The stories make him sound like a hero," the warrior said. "The stories make him sound extraordinary," Vexhai corrected. "In reality, he's quite ordinary by human standards." "Which tells you something remarkable about human standards." She finished the wing repair and placed the butterfly in a specialized recovery habitat. The Thrakari watched anxiously as his tiny companion settled onto a feeding platform. "Will she be all right?" "She'll be fine," Vexhai assured him. "Come back in a week for a follow-up examination." The warrior paid his bill and left with profuse thanks, his massive frame moving carefully to avoid disturbing the other patients in the waiting area. Vexhai watched him go, remembering when she would have assumed his size and armor were meant for intimidating others. Now she understood they were often protective adaptations developed on harsh worlds, not weapons of aggression. Her contemplation was interrupted by Marcus entering the medical bay, carrying a steaming cup of her favorite herbal tea. "Thought you might need this," he said, setting the cup on her desk. "You've been working since dawn." "The Interspecies Veterinary Conference is next week," she explained. "I want my presentation to be perfect." "What's your topic again?" "Bias in medical practice, how political classifications harm both patients and practitioners." Vexhai accepted the tea gratefully. "I'm arguing that medical professionals should treat based on need rather than species designation." "Controversial?" "Very. Half the attendees think I've lost my mind. The other half think I'm a dangerous radical." Marcus grinned. "Sounds about right for someone trying to change an entrenched system. How do you feel about it?" "Terrified and exhilarated in equal measure," Vexhai admitted. "But also certain that it's the right thing to do. You taught me that sometimes the right thing is worth being afraid for." "I didn't teach you anything," Marcus protested. "You figured it out on your own when you chose to help me despite your training." "Speaking of which," Vex-High said. "I received an interesting message today. The Galactic Medical Association wants to offer you an honorary membership." Marcus nearly choked on his own drink. "What? I'm not a doctor." "No, but you're the reason dozens of doctors are changing their practices. They want to recognize your contribution to medical ethics." That's amazing, but I can't accept it." "Why not?" "Because this was never about me getting recognition," Marcus said simply. "It was about making sure the right thing happened. If I start accepting awards for doing what any decent person would do, it changes the whole meaning." Vex-High studied his face, noting the genuine discomfort the idea of personal recognition caused him. Even after months of friendship, Marcus's selflessness continued to amaze her. "What if I told them you'd accept on behalf of all the people who've helped change these policies?" she suggested. "Make it about the collective effort rather than individual achievement." Marcus considered this. "Would that help advance the cause?" "Probably. Your presence at the ceremony would draw attention to the issues." "Then I'll do it," he said without hesitation. "But I'm not giving a speech about how wonderful I am." "I wouldn't expect you to." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communication system. Captain Tavara's voice filled the medical bay. "Dr. Vex-High, Marcus, please report to the command center immediately. We have a situation that requires your expertise." Within minutes, they were standing in the station's nerve center, looking at a holographic display showing a distressed cargo vessel drifting in space. The ship's design was unfamiliar, angular and organic-looking. "What are we looking at?" Vex-High asked. "First contact," Captain Tavara replied grimly. "This vessel appeared at the edge of our system 6 hours ago. They've been broadcasting distress signals, but we can't understand their language. Our translation systems are having difficulty with their communication method." "What does this have to do with us?" Marcus asked. "The ship appears to be damaged, possibly containing injured crew members. Dr. Vex-High's expertise with non-standard physiology could be crucial. And Marcus, your experience with first contact situations involving supposedly dangerous species might be valuable." Marcus frowned. "Captain, I'm just a freight pilot. I don't have first contact experience." "You have experience being the unknown factor," Tavara corrected. "You understand what it's like to be judged before being known. These beings are completely alien to us. We don't know if they're friendly, hostile, or simply desperate." "What do we know about them?" Vex-High asked. "Very little. The ship is biological in nature, possibly grown rather than built. Energy signatures suggest a silicon-based metabolism. Beyond that, we're operating blind." "Permission to approach their vessel?" Marcus asked. "Absolutely not," Tavara said firmly. "If they are hostile, you'd be walking into a trap. If they're desperate and afraid, your presence might be seen as a threat." "Then how do we help them?" "Very carefully," the captain replied. "We've prepared a shuttle with emergency supplies and basic medical equipment. The plan is to establish communication first, then assess their needs." "I'll go," Marcus said immediately. "Marcus, no," Vex-High protested. "We don't know anything about these beings. They could be genuinely dangerous. Or they could be dying while we stand here debating safety protocols," Marcus countered. "Someone has to take the first step, and I've got the most experience with being misunderstood." Captain Tavara looked thoughtful. "What if we sent both of you along with a small security team? Dr. Vex-High could handle any medical emergencies, and Marcus could serve as our primary communicator." "Why Marcus?" Vex-High asked. "You have trained diplomats." "Because," Tavara said simply, "he has a gift for seeing people as individuals rather than as representatives of their species. That might be exactly what we need here." An hour later, Vex-High found herself in a shuttle heading toward the unknown vessel, her medical bag packed with equipment designed for silicon-based physiology. Marcus sat beside her, reviewing what little information they had about the aliens. "Are you nervous?" she asked. "Terrified," Marcus admitted, "but also curious. Think about it. We're about to meet an entirely new form of life. Whatever happens, it's going to be historic. What if they are hostile? Then we deal with that when it happens. But I'd rather assume good intentions until proven otherwise." Marcus looked at her seriously. "6 months ago, you thought I was a dangerous apex predator. How did that assumption work out?" Point taken. Their shuttle approached the alien vessel slowly, broadcasting messages of peaceful intent on every frequency. The ship was even more unusual up close. Its hull seemed to pulse with organic rhythms, and strange tendrils extended from its surface like roots seeking nutrients. "I'm reading life signs," reported their pilot, a competent Andorian named Sertai. "Multiple entities, but their energy signatures are weak and fading." "They're dying," Vexhai breathed. "Then we need to move fast," Marcus said. "Can you dock us with their ship?" "Their airlock doesn't match our configuration," Sertai replied. "But there appears to be a cargo bay that might accommodate our shuttle." "Do it!" The docking procedure took 20 precious minutes, during which the alien life signs continued to weaken. When they finally achieved a seal, Marcus was the first to approach the connection between ships. "Atmosphere is breathable," he reported, checking his scanner. "High oxygen content, trace gases that shouldn't be harmful, temperature is elevated but tolerable." They entered the alien vessel together, Vexahai carrying her medical equipment, and Marcus broadcasting peaceful greetings in a dozen languages. The interior of the ship was like nothing they had ever seen. Walls that breathed, floors that felt warm to the touch, and bioluminescent panels that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. They found the crew in what appeared to be a central chamber. 3 beings unlike anything in the galactic database lay motionless in organic pods. They were roughly humanoid in shape, but covered in crystalline structures that caught and reflected light. Their faces, if they could be called faces, were elegant and symmetrical, with features that seemed to shift slightly in the changing light. "Beautiful," Vexhai whispered. Marcus approached the nearest being slowly, his hands visible and empty. "Hello," he said softly. "We're here to help." One of the crystal beings stirred, its faceted eyes opening to reveal depths like captured starlight. It spoke in a voice like wind chimes, its words accompanied by shifting patterns of light across its skin. "I don't understand," Marcus said gently. "But we want to help you. Are you injured?" The being's lights flickered urgently, and it gestured weakly toward a section of the ship where Vexhai could see damage to the organic walls. Fluid leaked from ruptured channels, and several bioluminescent panels had gone dark. "Their ship is dying," she realized, "and they're connected to it somehow." Marcus knelt beside the being, moving slowly and keeping his voice calm. "We have medical equipment, food, water, energy cells. Can you show us how to help?" The alien studied Marcus for a long moment, its crystalline features reflecting his image in fractal patterns. Then slowly it reached out with one delicate hand and touched Marcus's arm. The moment contact was made, light exploded through the chamber. Not harmful light, but communication. Images, emotions, and concepts flowing directly into their minds. Vexhai gasped as she suddenly understood what the beings needed. Their ship was indeed dying, poisoned by exposure to some kind of energy field. The aliens were symbiotic with their vessel, sharing life force with the organic systems. As the ship failed, they failed with it. They needed specific nutrients to restart the healing process, nutrients they had hoped to find in this system. "I understand," Marcus said, the light fading as the connection ended. "Your ship needs to heal, and you need to heal with it." The alien's lights pulsed weakly in what might have been hope. Over the next 6 hours, HFY worked frantically to synthesize the nutrients the aliens needed, while Marcus served as an intermediary, helping the crystal beings communicate with Captain Tavara and coordinate the repair efforts. It was delicate work. One wrong chemical combination could poison them further, but gradually the ship began to respond. The organic walls strengthened, the bioluminescent panels brightened, and the aliens themselves grew stronger as their symbiotic connection with their vessel was restored. "Why did you help us?" the alien leader asked through the light communication, its question filled with genuine curiosity. "Because you needed help," Marcus replied simply. "But we are unknown to you. We could have been dangerous." "You could have been," Marcus agreed. "But being unknown isn't the same as being evil. We learned that the hard way." The aliens' patterns shifted to what HFY was beginning to recognize as amusement. "Your species is unusual. Most beings we have encountered are suspicious of the unfamiliar. Most of the beings in this galaxy are suspicious of us too," HFY interjected. "They think humans are dangerous apex predators." "Apex predators?" The alien's lights flickered with what might have been laughter. "This one radiates compassion like a star radiates heat. If he is typical of your species, then the galaxy's fear is misplaced indeed." "He's fairly typical," HFY confirmed, "which is what makes humans so remarkable." As the alien ship prepared to depart, its crew now fully healed and their vessel restored, the leader approached Marcus one final time. "We would like to share something with you," it said through the light touch communication. "A gift in gratitude for your kindness to strangers." The light that flowed between them was different this time. Not just communication, but knowledge. Advanced medical techniques, principles of bioengineering, methods for treating silicon-based injuries that HFY had never imagined possible. "This is incredible," she breathed as the knowledge settled into her mind. "I can help dozens of species I could never treat before." "Knowledge shared freely always grows," the alien replied. "Perhaps someday, when your species has ventured further into the galaxy, we will meet again under better circumstances." "I hope so," Marcus said sincerely. As they watched the beautiful organic ship depart, its hull shimmering with renewed health, HFY reflected on how much had changed since that day Marcus had stumbled, bleeding, into her medical bay. "Do you realize what just happened?" she asked. "We helped some people who needed help," Marcus replied. "No, Marcus. We just made first contact with an entirely new species, shared knowledge that could revolutionize galactic medicine, and potentially open the door to future cooperation with a highly advanced civilization." HFY shook her head in amazement. "And you're treating it like any other good deed." "It was any other good deed," Marcus insisted. "The scale doesn't change the principle." "That's exactly what I mean," HFY said. 6 months ago, if someone had told me that humans were the most morally consistent species in the galaxy, I would have laughed. Now I'm beginning to think it might be true. "We're not special," Marcus protested. "We just try to do the right thing." "Marcus, that is what makes you special. Most species, when faced with the unknown, react with fear or suspicion. Humans seem to react with curiosity and compassion. That's not ordinary. That's extraordinary." Marcus was quiet for a long moment as their shuttle made its way back to Harmony Station. Finally, he spoke. "Maybe you're right," he said softly. "Maybe we are a little unusual. But if that's true, then it's something we learned from making terrible mistakes. Every act of compassion, every choice to help instead of hurt, is built on the memory of times we chose poorly. And that makes it more valuable, not less," HFY replied. "Anyone can be good when they've never been tested. Choosing to be good after you've learned how much damage evil can do, that takes real strength." As Harmony Station grew larger in their view screen, HFY thought about the presentation she would give at the Interspecies Veterinary Conference. She had planned to speak about bias in medical practice, about the importance of treating need rather than classification. Now she realized she had a larger story to tell. A story about how judging others by their worst stereotypes ultimately hurts everyone. A story about how true strength comes from protecting those who can't protect themselves. A story about how one bleeding human had taught an entire space station that the most dangerous assumption is that different means evil. Most importantly, it was a story about hope. Hope that the galaxy could learn to see past its fears and prejudices. Hope that understanding could replace suspicion. Hope that someday being unknown wouldn't automatically mean being unwelcome. And at the center of it all was Marcus Chen, cargo pilot, who had simply wanted to prevent some children from being poisoned and had ended up proving that humans were far more than the sum of their fears. As they docked with the station, Vexhai made a mental note to update the plaque beside her medical bay door. All species welcome was good, but perhaps it was time for something more ambitious. Perhaps it was time for all beings welcome, because everyone deserves a chance to prove they're more than their worst stereotype. It seemed like something Marcus would approve of. And these days, that had become Vexhai's most reliable moral compass.